So, do you know the real story of the haunted Annabelle doll? If not, today you're gonna know the true story about the Annabelle doll and Ed and Lorraine Warren. So, first, let's talk about the Annabelle doll. It's a lot different looking than how they portray her to look in the Conjuring movies. In movies, it's a porcelain doll, and the real doll was a Raggedy Ann doll. So in the 1970s, she was owned by some nurses, and they claimed that their doll moved on its own. They began to believe that their doll was haunted by a little girl named Annabelle because the doll was doing things that were humanly, and they started treating it like a little girl. They reported the doll moving all on its own and even writing handwritten letters to them. Things with this doll got so out of control that eventually famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren were actually contacted about this doll. And they got possession of it, and they told the people that owned the doll that it was not in fact haunted by a girl named Annabelle, but actually haunted and possessed by a real demon pretending to be a little girl named Annabelle. They believed that the doll's goal was to mimic the appearance of a little girl who needed help but was actually trying to find somebody to possess. So this doll was so dangerous that it was responsible for all sorts of crazy events over the years. But recently, Annabelle was on tour and its caretaker Dan died. Was it Annabelle's fault? To this day, she is kept in a glass case locked up for good, and Anna Lauren once said to never move or mess with this doll. But this priest shows up, mocks Annabelle's jaw, and then supposedly on his way home, he gets in a crash and he says he saw Annabelle's face in the rearview mirror. That's so creepy. Now here's the true story about Warrens. Like, were they really the true paranormal investigators as they always said they were? Because most people say they were liars, and there are so many controversies about them. So it is said that Lorraine was one of the most controversial women in paranormal history. She was born in 1927, and by the time she died 92 years later in 2019, she was renowned around the world as one of the most talented psychic mediums. Alongside her husband Ed, she co-founded the New England Society for Psychic Research in 1952. She was like super Catholic. She was known as a light trance medium and a psychic, but she was also obsessed with the church. So that's kind of controversial in itself because they don't really coincide. But Lorraine was like, no, God gave me this gift and I'm going to use it. And she prayed before every investigation. She carried crosses, holy water. But there's some dark truths and story behind Ed Warren. So this is the part that gets really heavy. Basically, Ed was a bad guy. So basically, this woman named Judith Penny came out and she said that she had a relationship with Ed when she was only 15 years old. Judith lived with them, and allegedly Lorraine signed paperwork so that Judith could live there. Judith says that Ed was manipulative and emotionally abusive. She also says that Lorraine knew about the relationship but went along with it anyways. Maybe out of fear, maybe out of survival, I don't know. But she could have been afraid of him, or she could have been afraid of losing everything, because before the 1980s, women couldn't even own their own bank accounts without a man as a co-signer. Yeah, which is so insane. Like, the 1980s was literally 40 years ago. That's not that old. It is worth noting that Lorraine, in the legal documents for the Conjuring movie series, she had legal control over what they could put in the media. And according to reporting from the Hollywood Reporter, she had it written into her contract for the Conjuring film series that neither she nor Ed could be shown engaging in extramarital affairs or committing crimes like use of a minor. That's oddly specific. So all those allegations were off limits for the movies, which raises the question, was this like a clause for legacy protection, or was this damage control? So after this, do you think these things that they have said were real? Are they really trustworthy people? So is Lorraine a real medium? Her supporters say yes, and skeptics say no, because there were a lot of families that she worked with that really believed that everything she said was true, but there were also families that have come out and said the Warrens are complete frauds, and there's even been like lawsuits put against them. They never went through. They were handled privately. Now the Warren Occult Museum and the family home has been sold to Matt Rife, a comedian. Yeah, he has some ghost hunting history, but he's a comedian, and his friend Elton Gasty, and they have leased all the haunted objects for 5 years. And worse, they want to turn it into a haunted Airbnb. And what this means for you guys is you're going to soon be able to book a night or a weekend and stay at the warden's house and investigate the house and the history of the house as well, and all the artifacts inside of it. Wow, bad idea. Why, Matt Rife? Why? Aren't you a comedian? Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video. Bye.